This is my latest homemade background. These are carrots and this is the Mamiya RZ67 medium format camera. And today I'm going to be taking some photographs of these carrots on traffic surveillance film. JCH Streetpan is a 400 speed surveillance film. On a sunny day can pack a Rocky style punch on the contrast, if you like that sort of look. And I've always liked the results it's given me outdoors in bright light, clean, sharp and contrasty. On a dull overcast day I do find that it's not so great, but who likes a dull overcast day anyway? And with this film I've never tried it indoors, so today I want to see how I get on with these carrots in window light on my homemade background, and for the first time developing this film in 510 Pyro. So basically, for no other reason than I'd like to see how it comes out. It could be a new formula for me going forward photographing carrots. But first I do need to sacrifice a roll. I was given a time of 22 minutes semi-stand development in 510 Pyro, shooting the film at 400. Now I don't know how those tests were carried out, so I'll keep the same development time of 22 minutes but find the best speed to shoot the film for me, the window light and the camera. So to test this film I'm going to keep it simple. I've set up a small scene in similar lighting conditions, place a few objects that include a bit of black and white, including my grey card, and test out some various exposures. Whichever exposure works best for my paper in the darkroom, that I will continue when I shoot my carrots. There are more solid ways to try and find a true speed of a film for your personal development and print, and I'll put a link to some information in the description of this video if you're interested. First up, I need to find a meter reading, which is going to be my rock to stand on. I used my spot meter at 400 ASA and I spotted on my grey card. It returned a reading of f11.5 at half a second. My bellows were extended on the camera, so I had to overexpose by half a stop for the bellows factor. This is because the light had to travel further from the lens to the film plane. That brings my metered exposure to f11 at half a second. The rest is pretty simple. I take my first shot, and then the next shot after that I overexpose by one stop using the shutter speed. I'm not sure about this film's reciprocity failure, so I used the aperture for the next shots and overexposed another stop at f8 and then at 5.6, and then I went underexposed by one stop from the metered exposure and then two stops and then finally three stops. After scanning my negatives using my DSLR, it was clear that the photograph with two stops overexposure was the winner. I then went and did the same with a few shots of the carrots, and again two stops overexposure came out best. But all that said, I really need to know how they're going to print in the darkroom with a 2.5 grade filter on my paper. So I need to make a contact print and see how they look enlarged. The contact print I made confirmed that I was underexposing at 400 speed. At 200 my grey card was a little bit too dark, and at 100 my grey card was looking much better. A little bit blown out ever so slightly on the bottle, and at 50 ISO, well, that was too bright. And then in the darkroom I decided to look at how the 100 speed negative looked on a print. For this I had to find how long it took my paper to reach its maximum black, so I put each negative under the enlarger for 3 seconds and this was the result. And you can see that 100 is definitely the speed that I need to shoot my carrots for in that 510 Pyro process of 22 minutes. I could bring the time down on the 510 Pyro and then shoot the film at 400, but for now I'm sticking at the 22 minutes and shooting the JCH Streetpan at 100 ASA. Right, so this is the second roll of film now. I'm glad I did those tests in the first place, otherwise I'd be shooting this scene at 400, metering at 400, and obviously getting underexposed shots. Now I know to use this film in that particular development process I was doing at 100 speed, so that's what I'm going to need to meter for. And that way I'm not going to waste any time. I would have wasted a bag of time. I'm going to be here for about an hour playing around with these carrots. So if I did that yesterday on that film, then I would have had underexposed images, a complete waste of time. Here's my grey card again, just going to do a spot meter on the grey card. I've also got to watch out for the sun because that's coming in and out of the clouds. Although the sun's above the house, it's quite bright out there. And I've seen the light coming in and out. So I've got to make sure that before I take the shot, I'm still at the right meter. So it's giving me 16.5, f16.5 at 1 second. So that'll do me. That half stop allows for the bellows extension that I've got. So I'll bring it down to f16 and start taking my shots. I've already used one shot accidentally. I pressed the button too early. When I take a photograph, you'll hear a slapping sound. That's the mirror popping up, and then I use the cable release to open the aperture and close again. You'll see like so. That's 1 second. So all I need to do now is just arrange these carrots in different ways and different forms. I'll show you the images as I go along, and yeah, see what happens. I don't mind a bit of bush, but that was ridiculous. I had to get rid of all that lot. I don't mind a nice pear, so I've got rid of the carrots, and I've got a pear sitting there with a little tiny carrot chip underneath it, just pushing it out. So this time I'm going to try a green filter. The pear's green, got a green filter, should make the pear lighter. Let's see what happens. Do a quick meter on the pear. F16.6, and then same again with the filter over it. So it's about 2 stops. So it looks like I need to allow 2 stops for this filter. This filter's blocking 2 stops of light. F16.5 metered up 8.5. So we'll try that, shall we? So that's it, all those shots are done. I did 2 more shots from the skylight upstairs looking over the fields, metered up, one at 1/25 of a second and the other one at 2/50 of a second. So I just want to see what it looks like outside. So I'm going to do exactly the same development, 22 minutes semi-stand in 510 Pyro. So that's 1 minute of inversions to start and then 1 more inversion after 10 minutes. Stop it with water, get it fixed in FOTOSPEED's FX30, which is a non-acid fixer, so I can keep the 510 Pyro stain. Get in the darkroom, hopefully make a print. As much as the Pyro times were bugging me, I went off to the streets with another roll of JCH, this time metering at 400 using the Yashica 124 Mat G. I tested the Mat G with the grey card just to make sure the meter was on point, and it was. I did the same development, but this time I reduced the time to just 12 minutes. I can't help but say that this film performs great in sunlight with its strong contrast. The negatives came out really well, and if you're ever wondering what the anti-elation layer looks like on this film when you're developed in Pyro, here it is. Nasty. So I've just come in the darkroom, made a couple of test prints on 5x7 paper. These are 2 different types. This is silver chrome, paper called silver chrome, and this is ILFORD multi-grade deluxe. The silver chrome is the paper that I was doing my tests on originally. So these were both 2.5 grade filters, and I'm intending to print this large, but what I've done is I've done my tests originally on this silver chrome paper, and I don't know if you can notice, but it's slightly less contrast than the ILFORD Multigrade Deluxe. That's the ILFORD Multigrade Deluxe there. You can see that highlight part of the carrot. I've got detail there. This one's slightly blown out, so this is more contrasty paper. I'm going to need to use a lower contrast filter if I want to make a larger print of these photographs. And that was on this paper here, silver chrome. You get this stuff from Silver Print. I'll put a link in the description, but that's what I've been using to do my tests on at 2.5 grade. That's come out really nice, but I haven't got that paper in a large size, so I'm going to have to use the ILFORD and do another test and see where I go from there. See, and this is the paper I want to use, this 12 by 16 inch size paper. So I'm going to have to do another test and possibly lower the contrast down a little tiny bit, but it's no big deal. So I just made a print on that 12 by 16 paper, the ILFORD paper. I used the contrast 0 because I needed to lower the contrast slightly down because it wasn't matching my test originally, but that's no problem at all. The only thing is this part here is just slightly, very slightly blown out, and I've done a slight bit of sepia toning on this print as well, only very slightly. But I need to control this highlight because it seems to be blown out, and I've been looking at it and thinking to myself, that's just doing my head in. At first it didn't bother me, but the more I looked at it, the more it was just jumping out at me saying, look, can you just fix me? And I thought, all right, I'll fix you. So I need to work on this little tiny bit here. So I need to make another print exactly the same, which I think was 8 seconds. I've got it on the timer over there. And probably for another, I'd say another 5 seconds, I'm going to burn, using my burn tool, just burn some more light into this carrot area here and see how it comes out. So I'm going to use this little tiny burn tool here, turn the enlarger light on, just have a little practice now and try and burn, there it is there, just try and burn a bit more into it. I'll show you. So I've just done that little test strip, I put it next to our actual print, and you can see I've now got detail back in the carrot. It's not so blown out, which is great. That means when I put it in the bleach and the toner, I'm going to keep detail in there. And I'll show you the sepia toning after this. I'm going to put it in very slight sepia. But for now, let's see how this has come out. It's quite an interesting film. If you go on the website, JCH Hunter website, you'll see that it's a surveillance film used for traffic cameras, speed cameras back in the day before digital. I think they stopped around 2007 using film in those cameras. I certainly remember going past them sometimes and the camera would go flash, but you wouldn't get a letter. Obviously the film had run out at the time. But being a surveillance film, on the spectral scale of things, it pushes up to about 720 nanometers or something like that, where most films will stop at around about 650. It pushes up the reds a little bit more, so it's designed to, you know, cut through haze, fog and what have you, sunsets, so it can still take a picture for surveillance reasons. But it's an interesting film to use. Very fine grain and brilliant quality. That's about done. So that's much better. I've got detail. I don't want to cover the whole highlight completely because that was an actual highlight coming from the window, but at least now I can see some detail in that part of the carrot. And yeah, there's a couple of other films. I think Valoi Retro 400 was another film which is similar. ILFORD SFX, I think that's a similar kind of film. And I think these also work if you get some infrared look out of it. If you put an R72 filter or a deep red filter on your lens. I've never played with infrared, so I wouldn't know, but that's what I've researched and read over the years. This looks nice. So I'm just going to sepia tone this print now. This is the bleach, this is the toner. The print's still wet, it's washed. So just pop it in the bleach, about 10 seconds, and that will start bleaching the highlights, and the sepia toner will turn the highlights slightly sepia. So I'm just watching by. I notice I've got a glove on as well. That's about enough. get that washed off quickly. That bleach will still work. Now I'll throw this into the toner over here, and I'll just keep rocking this tray back and forth until I see the sepia start getting into the highlights, because that bleach will strip the highlights away. I've done a weak solution of sepia toner, so it's not going to go full-blown sepia, just a slight hint, which is what I want. I haven't got any selenium. That would have been quite nice to cross tone it. Maybe a little tiny bit too long in the bleach, possibly. It's just kind of stripped it a bit there, but I've still got the detail back in, so that will look nice once it's framed. And just for shits and giggles, I thought I'd print out the landscape that I did, looking out the fields over my daughter's bedroom window there at the top, through the skylight. I come out all right. I had to burn the clouds in a little tiny bit. It certainly is a punchy film. You can see the tree in the background. So I've got a few rolls of that film, and I wanted to see how it come out in 510 Pyro. The time I was given was 22 minutes, and I was a little bit unsure about it, so I thought I'd do sacrifice a roll first, just to do my own test. And that was a quick way of just doing a test. And for me, 22 minutes in 510 Pyro gave me 100 speed, so that's what I shot, and they're the results that I got. Admittedly on different paper at the start, so I had to change filters on the ILFORD paper, but if I had the bigger paper in the silver chrome, that would have printed 2.5 gauge filter straight off, without any burning in that side of the carrot. It's not a solid test, it's just a quick simple test that I did, and I do that with a lot of films and development. If you do a solid test, you go through the third of the stops against a plain wall, etc. I'll put a link here, to some good information on that in this video if you're interested. And the JCH Streetpan, that surveillance film, there's quite a few different surveillance films out there for you to grab and play with. I find them quite interesting, and like I said at the start of the video, I just fancied doing something different for a change. Obviously I've got my go-to developers and go-to films for that sort of stuff, but it's nice to chop and change stuff around a little bit, because we shoot film, we can, that's what we can do, play around with film, play around with developers and see what happens. But anyway guys, hope you enjoyed this video. I'll put the link in that description, by the way, of doing a film test to find your true speed of a film. Some people echo it a lot, say, oh no, this film or that film, it should be shot at 320, should be shot at 200. It all depends on how you develop your development process. Other people's may be different, so their speeds are coming out completely different to yours, so always best to test it out, and also on the same camera as well, because shutter speeds can change throughout cameras too, which will mess all your tests up. But a little bit of fun and games going on here. I'll catch you next time.